So America's most powerful foreign policy tool may not be our carrier strike groups or bombers, but perhaps the US dollar. Because with it, we operate the world's financial blacklist. Over 3,068 pages, containing over 12,500 sanctioned entities. When someone finds themselves on this specially designated nationals list, trusted parties know not to facilitate their transactions. Trusted parties like banks and clearinghouses. Otherwise, they face stiff penalties. Sanctions leverage trusted parties. So what happens when a new monetary technology emerges without trusted parties? Bitcoin presents exactly this challenge. So can we fit this new technology into our old sanctions playbook? No, and we shouldn't try. But back in 2023, a co-author of Biden's main crypto executive order suggested 2 strategies for doing exactly that. Here's the first: block compliance, which would compel domestic miners to produce compliant blocks and exclude transactions that involve blacklisted Bitcoin addresses. So if Bob here is a sanctioned individual, US miners should forego his transactions, exclude his transactions, and those fees would go to miners elsewhere who are willing to process them. But with just 0.7% of network hash rate, miners elsewhere can expect to mine a block with Bob's transaction in less than 24 hours. So the transaction still appears in the blockchain, US miners forego the fee, and it goes instead to sanctions violators. So suppose we adopt another strategy, call it chain compliance, where not only do domestic miners produce only compliant blocks, but they attempt to rewrite non-compliant blocks that appear in the blockchain. For technical reasons, this makes producing non-compliant blocks more expensive, which is a good thing. However, it also threatens to embroil us in a hash war, a war of attrition. It's very expensive, potentially, and could lead to a kind of digital Cold War that we may very well lose. In fact, if you look at mining pools by hash rate, according to the countries they're domiciled in, the US has only about 35% of hash rate worldwide, whereas China itself already has 45%. So we just don't live in a world where the chain compliance strategy would be successful, at least not anytime soon. So what can we do if we can't use Bitcoin miners to enforce sanctions compliance over the Bitcoin ledger? I think we should pivot and think more strategically about protecting our own ability to use Bitcoin as a neutral monetary network to process transactions for both American citizens and our allies abroad. So think about defensive mining. Avoid taxes like the Dame tax proposed by the Biden administration, which would put a 30% tax on Bitcoin miners. We don't want to cripple them. Think about supply chain resilience and our ability to access Bitcoin miners. And finally, protect Bitcoin mining facilities. While Bitcoin obviously provides fewer opportunities for financial censorship for sanctions, all is not lost. Bitcoin's ledger is public and transparent and permanent. And if used responsibly, law enforcement can leverage this transparency for good. And finally, Bitcoin empowers those under authoritarian regimes. In doing so, it undermines the very authoritarians that we would want to blacklist anyway. Thank you.